Hey everyone, quite a lot of results over the weekend. We had two BCSs, one in Rosemont and then the other one in Europe. So the first European BCS happened, and then we also have a Chiho Cup, a regionals in Japan for WGP. So quite a lot of results to go through. Also some pretty interesting changes in the metagame, especially in standard. I think there's some pretty interesting standard results, which is kind of, surprising to say, right? Because we all have, pretty much fixed in our brain. Just look at this pie graph. Gonna be pretty much what it is. Gandiva, well, not really Chronojet, but Willista, basically the dominating decks. But then also some interesting premium stuff as well, because you're gonna see we had a big mega colony showing last week. What happened to it now? We'll get to that there, right? So first off, let's go through Chicago. This is the standard top 8, as I said before. Lots of Gandiva converting to top 8. Then Chronojet, Willista, and then Messiah and Majesty Lord. But then what really happened was that the Chronojets showed up. So both the Chronojets made it to top 4 and actually winning the entire event. So Jordan and Cordal winning the whole thing. But then the MLB as well. Jamel Amando taking second place with that MLB deck. Then Kyle Hartog with a Willista as well. And then Christopher Casanova in 4th place. And all the Gandivas just got cucked in top 8, right? And I do have to say, the Chronojet builds are pretty interesting. Why is it beating Gandiva? Why is it doing well? Let's kind of take a quick look here. So, you look at this build of Chronojet, heavy grade 1 count, so 21. It's also the weakest part of, Gandiva, because, when you play Gandiva, you need to flip over the grade to retire something of the same grade. There's not that many grade 1s in Gandiva, that's for sure. So being able to rush early, put down a whole board of grade 1s. These grade 1s aren't bad as well, right? So you have your GGs, you have your Gungrams, all able to plus you, all have value late game in generating soul. Same with Zargon as well. You can just throw all these down, and even the Steam Breaths, right? It is a multifunctional tool. It is a, stride fodder. It is also an 8k beater, and just hit 16k and then just rush. Try and do as much damage, and then later on, they all become big anyway because of the crest. So you can kind of just get value there. Push early, push with a bunch of 1s, and then later on, they might get retired, but who cares? They're low value for you, but you're building a board that is pretty anti-Gandiva-like, making them have to work by playing, Sturgeners, the grade 2, just manually retire. Sure, they can get a best harvest, but whatever. Just eventually your crest will, do work and win. And that's that, right? So, pretty interesting to see the Chronojets just take it like that. 2 Chronojets on top. Also, the MLB deck as well, right? I don't think many people are expecting something like an MLB, but hey, it's shown some results in the past. It's kind of shown, some results once in a while, and this is one of those once in a whiles, right? So, pretty good. Congratulations to all involved. But then moving on to V for Rosemont, this was quite surprising to me. 4 Shadow Paladin, 2 Grand Blue, 2 Genesis, and 1 Great Nature. So this was actually like a hamster build. And then when you look at the top 4, we had Daniel Tran with Night Rose beating Mitchell Flack, who was playing Luard. And in 3rd place was Darren Carney with the Night Rose, and then Ty Smith in 4th place with the Luard. So my question is, where the hell were all the Thavises? Right, Thavis should pretty much demolish all the Luards, and then should have a pretty decent matchup as well against the Night Roses. When we look at this card, absolutely none of them exist. Thavis does not exist in Rosemont at all, at least in V. Right, and this is based on the winning list. It's your Night Rose list that you've probably seen many times now. Get Skull Dragons, bash their face, win the game, right? And then finally in Premium, we had 5 Narukamis make it, then followed by 1 Gear Chronicle, Dark Irregulars, and Oracle Think Tank. Now, you might be going, yeah, where are the Mega Colonies? Well, I was actually told, I was just reading through Discord and chats from people who were there. So, top 8 in Rosemont had 0 Mega Colonies, 0 Gredoras. Top 16 in Rosemont apparently had 7 Gredoras. So, basically, all of them died, right? All of them died. And I think there was a Mellista as well that was in the top 16. That died too. So, all your dirty decks, Mellista, Gredora, seem to have just bubbled out, right? They're at least in the X2 slot, while all the Narukamis kind of having a favorable matchup against Gredora, right? Just went in. Because if you're playing Narukami and you fight a Gredora, I think you're pretty favored, right? I think you're pretty favored. The top 4 ended up being NLK winning it all with from Curtis Hadrill, and then Jonathan Ella coming second with Narukami, and then Michael Kahayes with Narukami as well, and then Michael Davrin in 4th place with the Steam Maiden. So just quickly taking a look at the decks. So first off is the NLK list. This DI list has been, I think it's been pretty standardized. This is pretty much the standard NLK list that you will see. Maybe the one flex slot is just the Edge and Darkness. You could probably run anything else. But the rest of it is like, yeah, you want to just 4x everything and then hope you don't ride into your Hope on Damp / this Barrow Magnus. I think some people also run like variants hard leg as well, just to get even more guard restrict going on, and that's probably where the flex slot is. And then yeah, it's pretty much the strides. And then in the, I think this is the 2nd place Narukami list. I think all these Narukamis pretty much look the same. Probably like 1 or 2 slots different, like -1 of this, add another Cho, things like that. Lots of small changes, but the core is there. They're all focusing on Vanquisher into Sweep command, because Sweep is basically the best card to combo with Exterminate, which is pretty much a main stride now. And then you just exterminate and exterminate. At some point, maybe you Stunverse, but basically just exterminate. And then restand, get a bunch of power, hope for the best. Yep. So that's pretty much all the lists from Chicago. But let's jump to the European ones. So Austria, in standard, we have the 3 Gandiva, 2 Alista now, 2 Chronojet, and the 1 Zorga. And then this changed into, again, Chronojet winning Alexander D, 1st place. Kalen F with the Willista J, Kobus with, again, Diva. So Gandiva finally getting it into the top 4, making it to Worlds. And then Andres R with the Jet again, right? So I get two different tournaments on the same weekend, 2 different regions, 2 Jets making it into each of them, and both of the Jets making it into top 4. I think that's pretty interesting, right? I think that's pretty interesting. And yeah, just quickly take a look at the Jet. This one has less grade 1 count than the other one. It's running Cyclers though, right? It's running the Cycler, and it's also running, just this Ling, which is able to top Jet. This was running the BR list as well, but this one I'm not the total fan on, like the biggest fan, right? 3 GGs only. I still think you probably want more. Getting the Cat as well, Falcade, but no, like, I forgot the name. It wasn't the other one. This guy, Zargon. I have just a mental blank, right? Just a total mental blank there. No Zargon. Just kind of a different build, running like the OT remover too. So yeah, but again, a focus on big grade 1s allows you to push early, allows you to kind of, at least with this build, allows you to stack. You're not relying on hits to get soul. Lets you draw more to kind of, if you get Cyclers, I guess, it lets you draw more and survive into your kind of stride turns. So again, pretty cool. But it kind of raises a point, right? Like, is Gandiva really that good? I'm just gonna throw this out there. If with my previous, I think I never put Gandiva into tier 1 before, right? Well, other people did. I actually don't think Gandiva is the one, like a tier 1 deck. I think it's a great deck. But all the good players, except, well, Jay is a good player, so he actually brought Gandiva. But I think the majority of good players would not take Gandiva. And I'm just wondering, is this kind of like the Youthberg effect in English, right? When Youthberg comes out in English, a lot of players are going, this deck isn't as hyped as it is, right? It's definitely a good deck, but it's not like god tier deck broken that was kind of portrayed in Japan, where everyone was playing Youthberg, and then here everyone's like, yeah, it's just a good deck. It's not like extremely broken or anything. And that's kind of what Gandiva is feeling, right? Like before, in Japan you saw it basically everywhere, and then when it comes here, it's a good deck, but it's definitely not taking every single top slot. And it's got a lot, I guess it has a lot to do with just how our tournaments are. 7 rounds instead of like 4 or 5. Or I think most of the time it's 4. It's not a team tournament. We don't have diversity cut. Just bring a good deck and perform with it. You don't have to worry about any other external factors. And I feel like that's what's really putting Gandiva in its place, right? In its place. Which is good deck material, but you bring it, I think a lot of players would bring something else, right? I think, like, for me, example, I'd personally be choosing, something like Willista or Zorga over Gandiva. And maybe even Jet now. Like, looking at these Jet lists, pretty cool. Pretty cool. I like these kind of innovations. Where they're just teching it, like, they're built a different way to tech against the meta, right? And then following up the V-premium, right? So 2 Aqua Force and 2 Shadow Paladin, and then Genesis, Bermuda Triangle, Dark Earrings, and Link Joker. I feel like this is a much more V-premium kind of cut, you know? More expected in a way. And then the top 4 was Carola Z taking it home with the Thavis, right? There it is. There it is. Michael W with the Genesis. And then Maxime Solom, 3rd place, making it to Worlds with Thavis as well. And then 4th place was Lucas R with the Ange. And then just taking a quick look at the Thavis. I definitely think this should have been in Rosemont, right? Just able to, you know, when you have Thavis, you get rid of Luards. Just a good matchup right there. And this is pretty much a list that you could be running, right? And then finally, in the premium in Europe, we have the 2 Angel Feather, 2 Angel Gize, 2 Link Joker, and then the 1 Grand Blue Narukami Royal Paladin and Gear Chronicle. So a big diversity there. Again, no Gredoras. Where did they all go? I don't know. And then here, the winner was Chris K taking it home with the Grand Blue, followed by Lewis with the, I think, French Lewis, right? Lewis, forgive me here if I say that name wrong. I think it's Voyager or something. Yeah, but yeah, taking it home with the Narukami. And then 3rd was Photon Fox with the Royal Paladin Altmile, like Jewel Knight Altmile. And then 4th was Cine Mini, I guess, with Angel Gize. Yeah. And then yeah, here's the winning list. Pretty much like Grand Blue box. You're running kind of the old Night Rose as well now to get some extra strides. You know, just combo and 4-bit alls. Just bit of everything. Blue OT. Yeah. What you'd expect from Grand Blue, pretty much. Yeah, just dodge all the Gredoras, right? Just hope you never see a Grenora at all. And then here's the 3rd place, because 2nd place was Narukami, 3rd place Royal Paladin. This is kind of interesting. It's like you're running the alt miles, like 3 alt miles to accelerate your force, and then after that you just ride into your Salome, and then just your Crystal Luster, GB3, restand, and then I think the question is, do you force 1 or force 2, because it's just the perfect amount of force 2 to split into your whole front row? Or do you like stack it all on like Vanguard or something, and then just make a restanding very, very powerful, right? I think that's the interesting part. And then you run like a complement of other things. So you have your Jewel Knight stuff, but then you also have like things like Suleiman that lets you kind of help you search for your alt mile, and then, you know, just some of the grade 2 like consistency cards. But that's pretty much it. You have that alt mile that you can kind of more pop off with. And then the Jewel Knight. So I'm just worried, like, with the Jewel Knight cards, you run, like, kind of... Since you're running, like, a weird hybrid, do you have enough Jewel Knight cards to consistently do the Salome skill? That's kind of my thoughts. But yeah, pretty interesting. Royal Paladin getting a good invite to Worlds, right? And then we have the Angel Gize list. So 2 of these Angel Gize lists made it to top 8 in Europe, which is surprising. But then you kind of realize that, you know, the deck is kind of tanky, right? You have like an extra, because of the Messiah, you have the extra Guardian Shield. And you have the Angel Feather stuff that lets you heal. So overall, it's like, I think Angel Gize is kind of like the surprising deck that became better. You know, your Honolly got updated and all that. So slightly better, slightly high defensive values. Even though your opponent is getting things like extra double force now. Some decks are just running like builds which just, you know, you get the forces but you don't get more after that because you get enough. And it's you draw a lot now, and it makes it kind of hard for your opponent to break through your defense in a way. So it's like this weird thing with like Gize got better and people kind of didn't realize it. What's interesting here though is running this OT. I feel like a Martinois is better, right? Because you can kind of get more triggers, which means more drive checks to get more triggers. And then that equates more bind zone quickly, I wonder. So yeah, interesting. But overall, two Adel Gize's making it through. So I'm wondering how this will turn out later on. Then let's move on to Japan. So Japan, we had a Tokushima Regional Cup. This was only a top 8 card as well, by the way. Half of the teams were running Willistar and 3 of them playing Mikazuki. Basically the best decks in the format still. And then 2 Overlord Minervas and Gandivas and Mushi Kings and Bastions, and then a bunch of other stuff after that, right? This is the after Swiss rankings. So top 4 was the undefeated before they swapped to diversity card. What's interesting here is the first place undefeated team was taking Amina Gruzia and Orphist list, so none of the broken decks, and then followed by, you know, every team bringing a Mikazuki here. And Ava as well made it to the top cuts, which is, I guess, a nice diversity, but how does it fare against the whole format? I don't know. And then also the Overlords making it to the top 2. Only 1 Gandiva, which means this guy cucks every single other Gandiva out of the top cut because of diversity. And then you look at what comes after this. So, you know, because there was no Willista in the top 4 undefeateds, then all the Willisters make it through. Yay, look at all this. 4 Willisters. I think was there no Bastion? There was actually no Bastion as well. So Bastion is making it through. And then, well, there's another Gandiva there. So, okay, he made it through. But we have things like Leonor, Mushi King, Minerva. Or Minerva, that was a Minerva, right? Yeah, so that made it through because of, you know, they just ran other stuff. But yeah, you can see here, like, again, another criticism of diversity cards. So there's 1 Amina Gruzio deck. This is basically the 3rd deck of the team making it through. Means everything else that runs Amina Gruzio is just like disadvantage. You know, the Overlords, right? Overlord. Kind of weird seeing Overlord back because it just Overlord does Overlord things. I don't think it got many upgrades. Got the ride line return to faction defense, but that's kind of it. But yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, going forward, well, we've seen this one. The winners was actually the Hexa Orb team. So Hexa Orb, Mikazuki with the Overlord. And the second place was the Overlord with the Ava team as well. So these guys stayed second. And then after that was just, yeah, the Minerva, Cashew, Willistar, and the Training Tools Gandiva. Yeah, let's kind of, so just a few of the decks. So first off is that Ava list, right? Ava with the, you can pretty much build this now, right now in English. Nothing really changed. Nothing really changed with the list. They just, like, added, when Clash came, they added 2 of this. I guess the interesting part is, like, only 2 habitable zones. But I guess now, you know, because you're not running the dock, you don't really have a huge need to get it. But the thing is, when you draw the habitable zone, it's just so good in the early game. Like, just drawing an extra card is, like, insane. So, I don't know. That one's kind of interesting, kind of weird, but managed to do something. Ava finally getting a top, right? And then after that, there was the Amina Gruzio list. So just the Cycler build with Gungaram. But the rest of it is just pretty what you'd expect from Amina Gruzio by now. Just finally showing another result, which is crazy good. And then the other list, let's kind of look at the Leonon one. So kind of what you'd expect because, you know, ever since this PR came out, Leonon just went up in stocks. What is interesting is this is not really, it doesn't look like it's a plant token rush build, because last week we saw a bunch of these like Leonorns, other Stoichea lists running heavy plant token builds, which is basically like 4 mushrooms. This was only running 1, but you know, something like what's the name? This Rosarium Fairy, I guess. Great plant tokens. But they were all running the grades. I think it's a grade 0 order that gives like 5k base power units, like plus 10k. Is it plus 10k? But yeah, it just gives them a bunch of power. So focus not on advantage, but just making a board, making it big, bashing your opponent, and just kind of making it so your opponent has a really hard time guarding early and just pushing damage up really quickly before finishing them off with some kind of weird multi-attack. This one is not running that, right? It's not running that. It's just kind of a more normal Leonon list with like a plant token, you know, with the ability to generate plant tokens. But then just kind of using them as just kind of like a normal kind of rush without like the heavy power gain that negates hand, right? And negatives hand, I guess. So interesting there, just another Leonon list. Interesting to see how a Stoichea list develop more in the future, especially now we've seen Vivace, right? Vivace, the units in dress. But anyway, that is all the results this week. A lot of things to actually talk about, right? Which is insane, right? Very, very good when this happens. We can talk about a bunch of small little details that change the meta quite heavily. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time, right? Basically, probably tomorrow. What's today? I don't know. Bye!